So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for coming to the launch of HK24, which is the new anthology of short stories by the Hong Kong Writers Circle. My name is Simon Overton. I am the chair of the Hong Kong Writers Circle. This is a really wonderful anthology. It was lead edited by Stewart, who is over there in the lumberjack shirt, waving and smiling and looking pleased with himself, as he should, because it really is a wonderful anthology of short stories. The Hong Kong Writers Circle is a member organisation. Our membership is about 60 to 70 people, so we like to think of ourselves as a sort of a small and relatively tight community of people. Of course, very open. If there's anybody that has thought about putting pen to paper, you'd be most welcome to join us as a member of the Writers Circle and to appear in a future anthology. And we produce one of these every year. Last year, our anthology was Hong Kong Future Perfect. And we did pretty well with this one. We actually went into a second print run, which is pretty good for us. Yeah, so we're quite pleased with that. And we're hoping, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to be as much a success as that one was. We have got some people, some of our writers here with us today who are going to read from their stories. And Stuart is going to say a few words in a minute. I want to thank Stuart, and I want to thank Joy as well, and Nathan. Joy and Nathan assisted Stuart in the editing of the work. You can give them a wave. So well done to them, and well done to Stuart as well. I really want to say thank you to Laura Ho, you can just see her name at the bottom there, who did the cover for us. Laura said that she might be coming along later, so keep your eyes peeled for her. And I really want to say thank you to Bookazine, who have been really wonderful and who continue to be really wonderful. They stock our books, they help to sell our books, and this is the second year where we have been able to launch our anthology at Bookazine. So a big round of applause to Bookazine. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass over to Stuart, who's going to say a few words, and then we're going to get on to the readings. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, good evening. As Simon said, my name's Stuart, and I was the lead editor of HK24. And the premise behind it is that it is 24 hours in Hong Kong and 20 stories. We didn't quite get to 24, but 20 stories that run from midnight to midnight through one day in Hong Kong. And I'd always had this idea for when I edited an anthology that this would be the theme, so I was very certain that this was going to be the theme, and I suggested it and we got going, and then I had all these doubts. What if all the writers want to write a story set at 3 a.m? What if they want to write a story set in a bar in Wan Chai? And I thought this could be a disaster, but I would like to say thank you to the writers who have contributed, because it worked. It just fell into place. I didn't have to change anything, really. It seemed to fall together, which I think is a good sign that this anthology was meant to be. And I think it reads very well as a day in Hong Kong. I haven't found any inconsistencies yet, and if you do find any, I don't want to know. Yeah, we have a wide range of stories. I think rather than me reading through them, I think it would be best to hear from some of the writers themselves. So just before you do that, I would like to also say thank you very much to my co-editors, Nathan and Joy. I know Simon mentioned them, but they did put a lot of hard work behind the scenes, really thoroughly reading through the stories and commenting and helping to put this anthology together. So I would like to thank them personally, and I would now like to invite Mr. Chris Maden to read an excerpt from his story, which is from the afternoon section of the anthology. If you would like to quickly find it, it's called Party Surprise. So Chris, thank you.
I feel a bit like we're sort of queued up for execution. I'm sort of looking for a red dot on my head. You'll find out in the first 4 words why I chose not to have an occupation as a singer. Oppa Gangnam Style, squeak squeak. The techno music thumps out. Against a backdrop of green wooded hills, a distant beach of scattered sunbathers and blue skies of towering cumulus, my honorary nephew Bruce leads the kids on top deck of the junk. Behind him, they throw their hands in the air, lower them, touching one elbow with one hand while the other circles on its wrist. In time with the beat, they spin on the spot. The music ends. The count 1 goes up in uniform, 2, and 10 hyper-energized balls, 3, torpedo themselves from the top deck to create 10 evenly spaced plumes of seawater. I feel a twinge of avuncular pride. I never had his confidence as an 11-year-old. As you'll see by the blush, I still don't as a 50-year-old. But also of relief as the adults move inside, leaving the foredeck deserted save for me. I huddle, light up, and take a few furtive puffs before Bruce can spot my infringement. He's old enough to make up his own mind, and I'm past the stage of worrying that he'll succumb to my filthy habit, but he does nag. I snuff the thing out before I get spotted and wander it into the covered area of the junk. Well, Reginald is in line for a new posting this year, Populist Regional in Singapore. That must be very disappointing for him, after he's worked so hard. I mean, only regional? Of course it's a step up. Sorry, I just remember you saying that Singapore is such a small market compared to Hong Kong. I've avoided this most quintessential of Hong Kong institutions, the junk trip, for many years, and now I remember why. I wonder if anyone will notice if I swim to shore. Fat chance. My doggy paddle would barely get me from the bow to the stern. I grab a beer from the esky, remember the chaos and embarrassment my host suffered the last time I went down that path, put it back, and settle for yet another soda water. John was offered a position there 3 years ago, the attack continues, but turned it down, even though the pay was much higher. Is the cake ready? Comes a reply. Time bomb rings out. After a moment I realise it's a ringtone rather than a stereo system. I see Bruce's head and shoulders emerge at the back seats of the junk. He looks at my phone and smirks. In a sudden intuitive leap, I realise that he's reset my ringtone from Deep Purple to Kylie Minogue, on whose saccharine offerings I have strong views of which my evil honorary nephew is well aware. I reach it before he does. Chan, I say, calling the caller ID. What holiday is it in Oman today? All holidays in the Muslim world are Eid something or other. Eid Mubarak, I hazard. I hear silence at the end of the line. Chandra? I use his real name. Buddy, I hear. The remoteness in his voice goes beyond the physics of long-distance telephony, and my mind flicks back to the bar of the Kyla Wentworth Golf Club in that desert country pitched on the edge of the Arabian Peninsula. Unlike the hills here in Hong Kong, the hills there are barren, and where the actual Wentworth Golf Club in Surrey is one of the greenest and lushest courses on the planet, its namesake in Oman was christened in irony. Inserted into a barren wadi of sand and rocks, its fairways are dun rubble off which one, in the absence of glass, we played from AfroTurf discs inserted beneath the balls. Its greens black with bitumen and, towards the end of the day, lined with the tracer arcs of putts sunk in mist. Look at the jellyfish, a child's shout interrupts my voice. You okay? I ask a distant Chandra. It's VJ, I hear. Okay, I'll leave it there. Who's next?
Thank you, Chris. Hello. Oh, thank you, Chris, and very nicely read. Okay, now I think we'll go to the midnight section, the very start of the book, and Reena Bhojwani. It's the second story. I'll give you a second to find it if you want to read along, and it is called Two of Them by Reena Bhojwani. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to be a little bit sneaky because I conveniently forgot my reading glasses. So instead of reading a big chunk, no, I don't want to borrow yours, thank you. I thought I'd tell you the story behind the story and then try to read a little snippet. Is that okay?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so the deadline for a proposal for this anthology was coming up, and we had a social, and I confess that I didn't have an idea. There's a fly over here. Sorry. And I was challenged to come up with one just because. So I thought, okay. On the way home that night, I passed two delivery people. One was Food Panda, one was Deliveroo. And this idea just emerged, and I managed to create a proposal. So obviously it involves delivery people, and it also involves potential suicide. After I did the proposal, about 2 weeks later, I found out that there was someone of, I think, Pakistani descent. The police officer was in charge of saving someone that was about to commit suicide. Does this ring a bell to anybody? Yeah, so I was horrified that my idea, of parts of the idea, seemed to have happened in real life. And that freaked me out, and I wasn't sure if I should start writing the story or not. But I did, and here is my attempt at the beginning without my glasses. 2 of them. Balvinder Singh! What are you still doing here? Mr. Sinha screamed. He was twisting his long grey hair into a turban. Into a bun. Uncle, it's Bobby, not Balvinder. You work at Punjab Express. We are the pride of Punjab, and you can't even accept your name. I just prefer Bobby. Shut up! Did you deliver the order I gave you earlier? He demanded, as he flawlessly wrapped a bright red turban around his head. It was hot inside the tiny restaurant, squashed on the first floor of Chunky Mansions. Sweat trickled from underneath Bobby's turban. Uncle Sinha watched as a bead disappeared to Bobby's dark beard. You forgot, didn't you?
Thank you, Reena. I wouldn't even have known that you needed reading glasses. A little bit further on in the morning, we have Ian Greenfield, who is just over here, and his story, Queen of the Streets. So I'll just give you a chance to find it if you can. Okay.
I put my blue uniform on. I can still smell the sweat and the rubbish on it, even though it's been cleaned. I wash it every day. Maybe it's not even the clothes. Perhaps it is me, and my brother-in-law is right. I guess that over the years I've grown used to the smell. Certainly my father used to come home smelling of sweat and more unpleasant things, the general aroma of his job. But he never complained, and I'm not about to start. It wasn't a job he enjoyed, yet he did it to the best of his ability, taking a pride in what he did, even if no one else ever noticed. 6 days a week he worked, 8 hours a day with almost no holidays. Even when he was ill, he'd head out the door with a kiss and a smile. Being out in the open air will help me recover faster than staying at home in bed, he would say. Really, it was only during the last years of his life that he struggled. And even then, he wouldn't give up. Someone needs to clean these streets, he'd say. But it's time to let someone else, my mother would reply. And I'm earning enough for all of us, I'd add. Just about. Working in a supermarket didn't reflect the success that my teachers at school had once predicted, but it brought the money in. I need to work, my father said, and I need to do this work. But it got harder and harder for him, until, in the end, I chose to give up my job so that I could help him with his. Financially, it made no sense, but it was the right thing to do. You only had to see the look on my father's face when we were out together. Him in his blue uniform and me walking beside him, pushing his cart or sweeping with his bamboo broom. It wasn't easy, but my helping him out kept him going, kept him working for a few more years, maybe even kept him alive for a little longer. In fact, those years when we worked together were some of the happiest of my life. We were a team, father and daughter. He was the one being paid, but I also ended up with my own uniform as we walked the streets together, cleaning, talking, laughing. We talked about anything and everything. And then he died.
Thank you, Ian. Next, we'll go to the final story in the morning section of the book, and a genuinely touching story by James Tam. Where is that? James in the corner. It's called Between Lives, and it's on page number 78.
Thanks. Sorry. I have my reading glasses, but I'm just going to read a very short paragraph. Partly because I can't turn page with one hand. And also, my friends like to tease me, I got three obsessions in conversation topics. One is life, one is death, and the other one, it's anything about, pollution, toilets, and so on. I'm very childish in that sense. But and in this story, this little story, I've managed to squeeze two of them into this one little story. So I was quite happy when I was writing it. Amma's crusted lips are parted. Her strong lungs have finally quieted down. The monitor's off, disconnected, pushed aside. The curtains around her bed have been drawn. Her roommates are dead, silent. Only us two now. Hadn't it always been until I too abandoned her? It's dim in here and a little chilly. Her body seems to have shrunk. Her giant feet look more out of proportion than usual under the blanket. I pat them gently. They carried her through a tough journey, helped her raise two sons to be different, so different that they found her embarrassing, an awkward reminder of a past they wished to forget. A few days ago, I found her near manic anticipation of a grandson exasperating. Now I'd give anything to unwind an hour of misplaced time so she could at least hear the good news. She had not had much good news in her life. I kneel down and whisper, Amma, your grandson has arrived. A big boy, over 8 pounds. You should have heard him scream. The doctor said he has super strong lungs.
Okay, we have a last minute addition to the lineup. So we have 4 more readings from the anthology. And we are now going to move into the afternoon section. And I, when I'm not writing, I work as a primary school teacher. And I don't know if this story is hilarious or terrifying. It's Blasphemy in 3 Acts by Cindy Lamb. It's in the afternoon section. Whereas, is Cindy? Cindy's there. So Cindy, come along, come along. I will give you the page number this time, just so you can read along with it. The story starts on page 124, and can I have a big round of applause for Cindy Lamb?
This is one of the few stories that I actually had fun writing. I found myself chuckling while I was typing up certain parts of it. Tonight I'm going to read part of Act 2, Blasphemy in 3 Acts. Act 2. Teacher Law has no idea why Jake's face has brightened up in curiosity, or why he is gawking at her. Unbeknownst to her, a buzzing mosquito has flown over and has attached itself to her upper lip like a funky accessory. Jake is staring at the delicate joints on the insect's legs. 1, 2, 3, 4. As he starts counting the legs, his right hand gropes the crotch of his short pants, which have grown too tight for his stocky thighs. The counting is serious business for the boy, because if the mosquito flies away before he finishes counting, he won't know the number of legs it has. Jake, didn't I tell you no clapping when you pray? Teacher Law asked in a calm enough voice, ignoring his hand. Sorry, Teacher Law, I forgot, he says. The mosquito zooms off just as he gets to 6. His hand is still groping. Then use your brain to remember, she says as a gentle reminder. She points at a chair in the corner of the classroom. 5 minutes in the naughty chair, he said. She would have preferred 40 minutes in a dark room if the school would allow it. Can I go pee first? Jake asked, jiggling a little. After 5 minutes in that chair, she says, biting on her upper lip. He tilts his head as he walks to the chair, his fist moving as if holding a steering wheel. If she could snatch his upper puppy arms and shove him into the chair, perhaps she would feel better. In fact, she doesn't like referring to the chair as naughty chair. If she were a more creative person, she would have given the chair, which is the color of fresh dog poop, a name more sorry, a name more unambiguously associated with guilt and shame. She has only taken 3 steps when she hears Jake singing a Cantonese nursery rhyme about driving away a mosquito with a hand fan. Open the mosquito net, open the mosquito net, there's the mosquito, there's the mosquito. Quickly get the fan, quickly get the fan. Get rid of it, get rid of it. Remembering that is an imaginative kid she's dealing with, she goes back to the chair and whispers in his ear. You know, the other day, I read a new story about a 4-year-old boy named Jacob. I wonder if I should tell you the story. I want to hear! Well, the boy had a lovely round face like yours. Everyone loved him, she whispers. Both her lips are burning now, so she starts rubbing them with the tips of her nails. The only problem with him was that he kept forgetting the things his teacher told him. Like you, he always clapped when he made the sign of the cross. Do you think God was happy about that? She nods when Jake shakes his head anxiously. She goes on. So one day, his parents took him to the hospital. The doctor did some scans and found cancer in the boy's brain. What's cancer? Jake asked, wriggling in his chair. It's a bad thing that was destroying his memory and had to be removed by surgery. The doctor opened his skull with a drill and a saw and a hammer, and then cut out the tumor with 10 knives. And then the next day, can I go pee now? He cuts her off. No, it's not been 5 minutes yet. Stay in your chair, Jake. But I can't hold it anymore, he says with a pout. 2 more minutes, she says, and turns away to the table where the boy's paintings are sitting. She starts filing away the ones that have dried. When she hears the trickling, she pinches her nails into her wrist and turns around. She sees him standing in front of the waste bin, his backside half exposed and half covered by a Swiss roll of school shorts and underpants.
Thank you, Cindy.
And an extra clap for the singing there. Next, we're just going to scoot back into the morning section of the anthology, just briefly, to Amanda Tong's story, 7 Terrible People You Meet on the MTR. I'm sure we can all relate. So Amanda, please come down here.
So for many years on Facebook, I have developed a reputation amongst my friends and family for using social media not for pictures, not for life events, but to complain about my hour-long commute when I lived in Pho Tan and all the way when I worked here on Hong Kong Island, first in Tin Hau and now here. Now I live in Quarry Bay. It's amazing. But when Reena actually is my coworker, and she told me about the theme of this year's Hong Kong Writers Circle Anthology. She talks about it every year, and I'm always like, yeah, I could submit something. And this one, she said, oh, it's about an hour in the life of a Hong Konger. And I said, well, my commute's like an hour. And then she's like, you could write about that. And I was like, I could. I have a lot to say about the MTR. So this is just a snippet of the most special station on all the lines, Admiralty. Page 47. Kowloon Tong was nothing compared to the soul and body crushing crowds here. Time to get intimate with this lady's perm while you wait. You are buoyed on the waves of people panicking that thought that this train, having arrived mere moments ago, is going to leave before they can get on. God forbid anyone try to get off. Welcome to the Island Line, the zoo. Behold the symmetrical lines of ostriches seated along both sides of the carriage. Every head is buried in a mobile phone. The well-seasoned have headphones. The masterful feign sleep. They are careful to keep their gazes just below the surface, safe and hidden as long as they don't make eye contact. You think once more of personal bubbles. Where they were popped with reckless abandon a few stops earlier, on the Island Line they are double-layered in tinted glass. An expectant mother forced to lurch back and forth, hands supporting her swollen belly. Don't see her. The white-haired grandma bending over, weighed down by long life and several red plastic grocery bags. Non-existent. It's a delicate skill, craning those elegant necks at the perfect angle to ignore everyone else.
Thank you, Amanda. I think for the most part, Hong Kong 24 is quite a light-hearted anthology. But in the evening section, things do take a slightly more thoughtful turn. So for our last two stories, we're turning to the evening section. And first up, we have Dimple Shah reading from her story, Joss, which begins on page 170, if you want to flick there. So thank you, Dimple.
Yes, I'm sorry, James, you're right. This is hard to do with one hand. So I'll just read the beginning. The oily steam rising from the cracked bowl was ripe with the essence of burnt garlic and scallions, making him mouth water. Polang knew from experience there would only be a tiny piece of boiled chicken awaiting her at home, and that was if her daughter-in-law was feeling generous. More often than not, Su Yung would thrust a half-bowl of sticky rice in her hands, seasoned with salt, soy, and a scowl. She swallowed the first scalding mouthful of watery beef broth, just as a pair of polished black wingtips stopped before her. "You come back, ah?" she exclaimed, nodding towards a heavy-set woman positioned nearer to the main street. "Finally not solve all your problems?" The feet encased in the shoes shuffled twice, as the young man gave a brief, sheepish grin before returning his gaze downwards. He was dressed formally, his brack suit and tie the uniform of thousands of salaried employees in the city. He ran his fingers through his gelled hair, an anxious tic she remembered from his visit a few weeks earlier. "Yes, I'm back," he muttered. Expelling his breath with tidal force, he slumped on one of the two cheap plastic stools she placed every day on red tarpaulin masquerading as carpet. The cacophony of Causeway Big traffic swirled around them in the early evening. The earlier rainstorm had left the city sweltering under trapped humidity, making clothes cling to sweaty skin like moist eels. The man sat up straighter, loosening his tie. "Popo," he sighed, using the term for grandmother, his manner suitably deferential for addressing a 78-year-old woman, and pitched just loud enough so only she would hear. "I'm sorry, I should never have gone to her. But she was so insistent, so certain she would drive away my lousy luck. But nothing she did worked." He fidgeted with the lapels of his jacket. "Popo, we did that ceremony when we came before. But do you have anything stronger?" "Stronger, huh? What do you mean stronger?" "More effective. Last time very powerful already. Good for taking away bad joss. Prayers and chanting for 35 minutes. 5 minutes extra, same price. But I'm still having bad luck. I need a more powerful solution."
Thank you, Dimple. And for our last reading of the evening, we are turning to the, I think is it the pre-penultimate? Third last story. And it is by our last reader, Rosalind Shih, and it is called A Barman for the Correspondence. So, big round of applause for Rosalind for what you've done.
Thank you very much. I think we should all give ourselves a round of applause for just supporting creative fiction in Hong Kong and, Hong Kong Writers Circle. So thank you so much for what a really wonderful audience. This section is about father and son, their relationship, and the father who works at the Foreign Correspondence Club, maybe a place you've been to before. Lung remembered that when he first started bussing dishes at the club, his customers had pocket squares and handkerchiefs. Their shoes matched their belts, and they billed their tabs to the Post, the Economist, and Reuters. Although he never read their work, he had to admit some admiration for those lo-bang who went to the makeshift camps to interview Chinese, Vietnamese refugees without a lick of Chinese, Cantonese, or Mandarin. They reported on SARS, the handover, water shortages, and Star Ferry riots. Ricky said that the club had even served the American correspondent who wrote Old Man and the Sea. By all accounts, that bloke was liberal with the house whiskey. Once, Lung's son Johnny had gotten suspended from his secondary school for 2 days, all because he got in a quarrel with the head of his grade for refusing to sing the national anthem. That's when Yiling had pestered Lung to take their son to work, so he could do his homework and practice English with the Guailos. That same evening, the news had identified a building complex as the source of several cases of bird flu, and the next morning, the international media was screaming about a pandemic. The reporters had practically lived at the FCC, going home only to shower. Ricky had insisted Leung work overtime to keep the coffee flowing. Johnny had sat in the middle of the hubbub, entranced. When the hysteria had died down, Leung told his son to stay at home, read some books, and stay out of trouble. One day he hoped Johnny would find a real iron rice bowl job, neither as a writer nor a bartender. But Johnny was drifting in the wrong direction. After the high school board set up a bust of Comrade Lei Feng, the gift of some illustrious and eccentric donor, he and his friends had decided to pull a series of pranks, from covering the bust in red paint to hanging a sign around the neck that had confessed the comrade's crimes, including the names of the female students he had molested. The teachers never caught the mischief makers, but a group of student counter-protest ambushed them after school. Johnny was pushed down the stairs, resulting in a broken leg. His mother had nearly turned her hair out in anguish. Even after Johnny's leg healed, he still limped around on his old crutch. Why? Out of spite, self-righteousness, and victimhood, Leung surmised. The symbolic crutch became such a sore dinner-time topic, and Johnny soon learned to keep it at school. Leung knew that someday teachers would be giving students mark for patriotism, and Johnny couldn't afford any more mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. And can I have one more final round of applause for everyone that read tonight? It's not easy to read in front of an audience. Just before we finish tonight, I forgot to thank at the start Alan Sargent, the typesetter for Hong Kong 24. So every page that you read has been beautifully typeset by him. He put up with all my last-minute changes and so on. So thank you, Alan. And thank you to everyone for coming along to support HK24, to support the Hong Kong Writers Circle, and like Rosalind said, for supporting creative writing in Hong Kong. So thank you very much for coming out. I think, do you want to say a closing words? Thank you. And I'll pass you on to Simon.
Yeah, just to say, again, thanks for coming down. If you haven't got your copy, you can get one here, maybe. Okay, well, over at the place over there, if you want to pay by credit card. If anyone wants to join the Writers' Circle, come and talk to me, or check us out on our website, hkwriterscircle.com. Is there anything I've forgotten to say? Okay. Thanks again, everyone. Please finish up the wine. We've already paid for it. And otherwise, have a safe journey home. Thanks a lot. And Happy New Year. Tong Patrick. I'm going to say that.
I don't know how to say it in case there was.